This is Everybody Pulls the Tarp with your host, Andrew Moses. Each week, Andrew talks with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets.
My guest is Washington Commanders running back Austin Ekeler.
Every day we write a page of our life. The best thing is you have the pen in your hand.
Three-time Olympic gold medalist Tessa Virtue. Welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Thanks for thinking of me, and I'm a big fan of the podcast and of yours. So anytime you text or call, I'm here.
Mike Mills from REM.
The key to that was realizing at some point fairly early on that this was probably our life's work.
Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas.
My guest is 2023 WNBA Coach of the Year, Stephanie White.
The hardest thing for a coach is trying to prioritize how much time you put in one area or another.
Former MLB player, coach, and manager Clint Hurdle.
That is the best title of any podcast out there in America, and the content matches up to it. Andrew, you do a fantastic job. I'm a big fan. Keep up the great work.
World-renowned organizing expert Shira Gill.
You can improve your life simply by removing things.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people.
Let's go. Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I am so excited to share this week's episode with you. You are about to hear from one of the biggest stars in the National Women's Soccer League, and what she shared are ideas and perspectives that apply far beyond soccer. This week, my guest is NWSL star and Kansas City current defender, Kayla Sharples. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say this. If you've been listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp for a while now, welcome back. And if you are a new listener, I just want to take a moment to say how glad I am that you found the show and officially welcome you to the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. We've already had over 250 and counting conversations with the world's top performers in sports, entertainment, business, and more. And in many ways, I still feel like we're just getting started. I hope you'll hit that follow button right now in whatever podcast app you're listening to, and join me each week so we all can learn from the world's top performers together. Okay, now let me get this conversation with Kayla all set up for you. As I mentioned moments ago, Kayla is currently a star defender for the Kansas City Current in the NWSL. And in 2025, Kayla helped lead the Current to an NWSL regular season record 21 wins. Thanks in large part to Kayla's remarkable efforts on the defensive side, the Current gave up just 13 goals in its 26 regular season matches during 2025, which is the best defensive mark by any team in NWSL history. In 2025, the team also shut out opponents for a combined streak of 869 consecutive minutes. Now, I did some quick math on that, and that's over 14 hours of consecutive shutout soccer. Absolutely wild. For her efforts, Kayla was named to the 2025 NWSL's Best 11 and was a finalist for NWSL Defender of the Year. But as you will hear in our conversation, stalwart defense isn't something new for Kayla. During her remarkable college soccer career at Northwestern University, Kayla started all 88 of the team's matches and anchored a defense that had 47 shutouts during her collegiate career. In the conversation you are about to hear, we explore it all. Kayla's rise to soccer stardom, as well as many of the ideas, mindsets, and frameworks that power her success today. As you will hear, like so many of the conversations we have on this podcast, Kayla's story isn't just filled with success and record-setting achievements on the soccer field. Her journey is filled with adversity, change, and crossroads that require decisive decision-making. This conversation is about so much more than soccer. It's about taking on new challenges, stepping out of your comfort zone, and always finding ways to grow and improve. There is something in this episode for everyone, and I hope you take away as much from Kayla as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Kayla Sharples. Where I want to begin, I want to go back to your college career. When I am studying up ahead of these conversations, once in a while, there are stats that just catch my eyes and I have to dig into them. I want to start with two stats in particular. You started all 88 matches in college. That is just remarkable to think about, and I don't want to talk about it. And you also anchored a defense in college that had 47 shutouts. So 47 of the 88 matches were shutouts. Just remarkable. Let's start there. 88 matches, you started them all. Have you always been like a remarkably consistent and disciplined person? Because I would imagine those are two things that you need if you're going to start all 88 matches of anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just started off from childhood being ultra competitive. And when you have the competitive spirit within you, you always want to be performing to the highest level, but you want to be performing in every single training session and every single game, no matter what. So yeah, I think bringing just like my college career, my coaches were very intentional with recovery as well. And I think that just ultimately led me to be able to accomplish those feats.
47 shutouts. So that's the second number I wanted to dig into. I mean, talk about that for a minute. I mean, for any team at any level, that is remarkable. I mean, living up to that type of standard every single day, it's just remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I was a part of Big Ten conference. When I had committed to Northwestern, I knew that Big Ten a lot of the time goes hand in hand with being super physical and getting into tackles and just having that gritty mentality. And Northwestern was exactly that. And I think my entire team, but especially the back line and goalkeeper position, was very stingy on defense. We didn't want any of the shots to go back in the back of the net. And we just had that very prideful defending. And I think that's ultimately what led us to be able to have 47 shutouts throughout the career.
Prideful defending. That's a phrase I'm going to want to come back to. Let's hold on that for a moment. I want to go back to something you said a minute ago. You talked about being ultra competitive. So is this a trait that kind of carries through in everything that you do, Kayla, whether it be soccer, other sports throughout your life, board games, card games? Are you just competitive in everything?
Absolutely. Almost to a fault, honestly. I just hate losing. I think it just stems from growing up. My family, we love sports. We love competition. But specifically, I have an older brother. And so he's like 2.5 years older than me. So he was always out on the court playing basketball or on the field playing soccer. And I always wanted to be there with him. And I wanted to beat him being the younger sister. So yeah, I think it stems from that.
Take me back to your first soccer memory. What's your first memory of playing soccer or any exposure to the sport?
That's tough because I like to say I started kicking a ball when I could start walking. Soccer is always one of those sports that your parents put you in from the get-go, just to be in a team environment, be outside, get some activity. And for me, it was, just being on the field at a young age, playing like recreational soccer. But you have some of the players picking grass or looking at the sky, catching butterflies. And I was like, no, super focused on kicking the ball, wanting to win. Those are some of the memories that I have early on.
So you kicking the ball, you remember kicking the ball from the time you could walk, that competitiveness, you layer that in. When did you start to realize that you might be a little bit better than the average person at this game of soccer?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a young age, I just was always taller and bigger and just stronger than other people around me. I think once that kind of started, I was like, oh, maybe this is a sport and an activity that I can continue. And then as you get older, people grow, they get better too. And so then I had to tailor my focus on, okay, I can't just have that innate talent. I need to actually work on my game. And once I started doing that, I was like, oh, I like this sport. It's something that I want to continue to strive to do. And so I think it was really my middle school time when I transitioned from one team onto a next, and it was going to be a lot more competitive of an environment, which I liked.
What do you remember about that period of time when you suddenly realized in middle school you maybe couldn't rely entirely on your athleticism and you needed to maybe get more technical and to layer in some thought with the athleticism? Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, right, I thought it was the biggest decision I ever had to make. I was leaving all my best friends at one team that's in like one suburb. And I was like, several of us tried out for this new team that was high level club and had a lot of talented players that came in from like hours away. just to be training there. And I was the one who made that team. And I had to make the decision of, do I stay in like this one environment where, I'm having fun, I love my team and we're playing good soccer? Or do I want to continue to push myself to be the best I can to grow and develop? And yeah, at the time I was like, this is the hard decision of my life. And my parents just helped me through that process. And I'm really glad I did end up going to that team. And we were consistently the top team in the country for like 4 or 5 years when I was a part of it. And I think when you're a part of a team that's consistently doing really well and has a lot of talented players, you're like, wow, this is something that I'm a part of, I'm good enough to be a part of, and something you want to continue to do.
Kayla, that's a great segue, because I know at one point, a few years into your professional career, when you kind of had to make a similar decision. You grew up in Chicago, you played at Northwestern, you played all those years for the Chicago Red Stars, and then you made the bold decision in free agency to move to the West Coast, join Bay FC as one of their inaugural free agents, and be part of that early start there with the team at Bay getting going. Talk about that decision. I mean, to leave, again, like leave something that you were familiar. Maybe it was a lot more dramatic than like just going to another suburb in Chicago when you talked about that other shift. Talk about that, like the thought process that went into that, because as you were telling that story, I was thinking about the move to Bay, and I'm sensing that maybe there are some parallels.
Yeah, I don't shy away from change and putting myself out of my comfort zone. And again, I think that stemmed from like early age in my childhood and what my parents taught and instilled in me. So yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough. I got drafted to my hometown team, Chicago Red Stars, and I was there for 5 years. And I think it helped develop and like transition me from a collegiate player to professional player. But at a certain time, I just felt like I needed a new scene, a new scenery. I wanted to continue to grow. I wanted to be under different coaching staff and philosophy. And so during my free agency, I just thought it was time. I wanted to be valued somewhere else. I really loved what the coaches were building at Bay and the vision that they had for the club. And I really wanted to be a part of something, because now I was almost considered being a vet in the league. And I wanted to be a part of creating change, laying a foundation, creating a legacy at BFC. And yeah, I really, really did enjoy my time. And I was away from home, but I thought it was what was best.
Maybe it's not that specific example, but like just in general, you're such a growth-oriented, growth mindset-driven type of person. And I can tell just from listening to other things you've said over the years and reading stories about you and just this brief conversation that we've already had. How do you know, like, what's your measurement for when Kayla Sharples stops growing or the growth slows and then you need to make a change? Or talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think it could be at times complacency. There's a difference between feeling really good with where you're at and what you're achieving, but then it gets to a point where, oh, maybe you're not getting challenged enough, or you have bigger and brighter goals that you want to achieve and you just feel like you're a little bit more stagnant or not learning anymore under that certain environment. So I think that's kind of the mark for me when I feel like either I'm not really growing, or maybe the mindset of, I'm almost like taking a step away from growing, which I don't like.
I'm curious though, when you start to feel that way, like for you personally and professionally, do you feel like it happens over a long period of time, or do you feel like it hits you suddenly and you're like, whoa, like I've stopped growing? I feel like there's maybe some complacency shifting. Like, talk to me about that. Does it happen quick? Does it happen fast? Or does it happen quick, or does it happen over like this gradual burn?
I feel like it's probably a gradual burn. Again, you're in your environment. I'm a person that when I'm in a specific environment or wherever I am, I like to invest all my energy in that and not think about too many other details. And so you're in the environment, let's say you are like, I'm doing well. You can get to a point, you're like, oh, I'm doing well. Like in this year, that's great. And then the next year, like still doing well. But then you're like, wait, but now I want to add something to my game. I want to challenge myself a little bit more. So it's that gradual, it's happening, but you don't know it until a specific moment. And then that's when you kind of have that mindset shift of, oh, it's time for something different.
Speaking of time for something different, so you make the transition to Bay, and then shortly thereafter, you get traded to the Kansas City Current, where you are today, and you are thriving, one of the stars of the team, and on a remarkable run with the Current. Talk to me about both of those changes, what you've learned about yourself in terms of navigating change, navigating new surroundings. I know when a trade happens like that, it's a flurry. Things go down fast, packing up and shipping stuff out, and then you're probably getting on a plane with a new bunch of people, maybe some people you know, maybe some people you've never met before. Talk about that. How do you go about navigating new surroundings? Because whether somebody listening to our conversation is a pro athlete or not, they're navigating some type of change in their life. I'm curious what your perspectives are on that. How do you do that?
I think that's a great question, honestly. I think if you are also brought into an environment that just cultivates a great team culture, cultivates just a growth mindset, constantly challenging yourself, an ultra competitive environment, I think all of those things were ticked off my list at Kansas City. And so for me, going into an environment like that, everyone lifts everyone up and they're motivating and just super encouraging of playing and being the best that you can be. And so for me, that made it super easy for me to come in. And I think that's something that's important to note too. At Kansas City, we have super high standards. And so when you already have standards in place that you know you need to reach, it also makes it easy for a player like myself when I'm coming in to be able to put myself against this list of, okay, am I hitting this? Am I hitting this? What do I need to do in order to check that off the list? And there's everyone there just is super helpful when you have those questions and answering them.
There is no question you've had extraordinary success here in your time with Kansas City, and the team has had great success as well. I'm curious, when someone arrives in a new place like you have, how much responsibility is on the individual that's arriving, the new person, versus the team and the culture, like to figure it out and make it work? Like, how do you reconcile those two things? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot on the player coming into the new environment. I mean, if you ask anyone, I'm not a shy person. I'm not reserved. I am outgoing and social. I'm not afraid to ask those questions and try to insert myself in a positive way in the environment. And so it's up to, I think, the individual to have that personality and that, and the no fear of coming into a new environment, disrupting it a little bit, right? You're still getting along, but not being afraid and not shying away from what are my expectations that you have of me? How can I fit into this system? Asking coaches all these questions about the new style of play, the new formation, asking the players, what's the standard on the team, the culture of the team, just making sure you're on the same page, because that's ultimately what's going to help you be successful part of the team.
So I am curious, Kayla, when you think about arriving in a new place and juggling all of that, how do you juggle like all the staying focused between the lines, like making sure that the stuff that you're dealing with, like new city, new community, new place, meeting new people, all these different things, does not distract the focus on the main thing, which is the reason that you're there in Kansas City to play for the Current? Talk about that. Like, when you're in new surroundings again.
So when I got traded in 2024, it was towards the end of the season. There were only, I believe, like 7 or 8 games left of season before playoffs. So when I came, I honestly canceled all the outside noise. I was in it. I was always trying to put my focus on the team and what I could do to help the team have a successful last few games of the season and then going into playoffs. So for myself personally, when I got there, I was like a sponge. I asked all the questions possible. I stayed at the facility extra hours just to make sure I'm learning the right roles for myself, the tactics, getting the proper recovery. Like, I was so dialed in that I honestly did cancel out all that outside noise because I wanted to help this team win in any way.
Speaking of facility, so the team plays at CPKC Stadium. It's the first purpose-built stadium for women's soccer. And I am curious, that has to be pretty neat to play at a place like that, to play your home games. But take me behind the scenes. Like, what are some of the little details, the little differences maybe that go into, because it's the first purpose-built stadium for women's soccer, that go into maybe driving the team's success? Talk about that. Take me behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We love playing at CPKC Stadium. When you step into the stadium, you just feel a different type of energy. I actually think when I came to Kansas City, it was like one of the first times I truly did feel like a professional athlete. I felt valued in that way because the community shows up and loves women's soccer. And I think that's just so neat and special. And when you have that encouragement, that investment from the community, it just makes you as a player want to perform to the best of your ability. You want to put on a great show, a great game of soccer in front of them and have that pride and wearing the jersey, just like all these people around you, our fans have. So yeah, I think it just gives us an extra edge. And we know how grateful and like how lucky we are to be able to experience that right now and creating history.
Absolutely. It's incredibly exciting. By all accounts, just an incredible building to take in a soccer game. I'm curious, Kayla, when you think about all the success that you've had in Kansas City, I've got to believe it goes back to a phrase that you used earlier on in our conversation. You used the phrase prideful defense, or being a prideful defender. You just used the word pride again, pride in the name on the front of the jersey. I'm curious, what does prideful defense mean to you, or being a prideful player mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's putting in that extra effort in every single situation you're in. It's loving the team and the environment and the club so much that you would do anything to help your team win. You're like just giving that, you're just above all else like a team player. You're gritty, you're resilient, you're going into tackles like hard, like no one else comes into our stadium and disrupts our flow. Like we have that edge, that bite. And that's kind of something at Kansas City. And myself, we are so prideful in defending our goal.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today. Where do you think, deep down, if you had to reflect deeply on Kayla Sharples, yourself as a person and as an athlete, where do you think that comes from? Because that's not just something that you can flip a switch because it's a tagline on a wall in a locker room and play prideful defense or be a prideful player. Talk about that. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's two things. I think being prideful in general means also you're grateful for what you have. You've worked so hard for something that you don't want to let it slip through your fingers. You want to make sure that you're putting in all the effort possible because there are people that came before you that kind of paved the way. And so you need to meet those standards and you need to leave also the experience and for me, the league better than I found it. So I think that's one angle. And then I think another one, pridefulness, when it comes to defending goes kind of hand in hand to just being a competitor on the field, not wanting to lose, not wanting to back down, putting your body on the line in moments that are just critical or could be game changing in a match. And I think that's something that this entire Kansas City team has, but especially the defenders. You will see us slide tackling, blocking any part of the goal just to make sure the ball doesn't go in the back of the net.
So let me ask you a little bit more about that. I feel like there's a fine line between when you're obviously ultra competitive, we talk about that. There's just a grit and intensity about you as a player. Of course, we've talked about that. How do you manage the energy? How do you make sure that you've got this competitiveness, you've got this intensity, but that it doesn't get ratcheted too far the wrong direction? How do you manage that? Maybe manage your energy. How do you balance it? Make sure the dials are turned right. Talk about that for a moment. Is there anything to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think just being prepared for whatever moment comes at you. You will have to tailor your energy for sure throughout the game. You can't be too hyped in moments, but I think just staying focused at what is in front of you in that moment. So whether your team, you're in possession and you need to be able to just control the game, slow it down if you need to ramp it up for a transitional sake, or whether you're defending. So I think it's just the mindset of the next play. Again, not getting too dialed in, not thinking about, it's only the 15th minute. Let's think about this next half or something like that. It's just staying in that moment.
How do you do that from a discipline perspective? We all would benefit from being where our feet are a little bit more, being a little bit more dialed into whatever we're doing right now. Talk about that. What's that look like for you?
Well, actually, so we also have been working with a mental health performance coach at Kansas City. And so oftentimes the team does meet with her. And then you can also schedule one-on-one conversations. And she's just been incredibly helpful. And so, like, for example, right, let's say there's a play where I'm kind of a perfectionist, but no one can be perfect. The game of soccer, right? There's always going to be different scenarios. So if I miss a pass and in my head, I have to tell myself there has to be like a physical cue. So I might like pull up my shirt a little bit, and then a mental cue of like next one, like verbal, like say that out loud. And then you have to see something. And like, I just look at the goal, and you do all that with a breath. And so it happens in a second, and you just kind of do that through repetitions in training and in games. You're focused in the moment, right? A mistake happens, but you're able to do something, change your mind, and work on the next play. So that's just been super helpful in changing that mindset a little bit.
So take me through that again so I can make sure I get it all. So there's a little kind of physical cue. That's for you. That's like taking the sleeves up a little bit.
The sleeves up a little bit is the physical cue. You have like a visual cue. So I look at the goal in front of me, and then the mental cue of me saying next one. And then you do that all with just like a quick in and out breath. And it's able to just turn your switch a little bit of, okay, yes, that happened, but you're bigger than just that one moment, that one mistake. Move on to the next one, because the game it's a 90-minute game. You have to be able to switch on in those moments and move on to the next one.
It's interesting, Kayla. I am, as you described that, I'm thinking back to a conversation I had with a former catcher for the Boston Red Sox. And we talked about the catcher's role in baseball really being these two different, sometimes like competing sets of responsibilities, right? They're a hitter, and they've got like their relationship with hitting, and then they're a catcher, and they have the relationship with catching. And these two things are happening at different times of the game. And if you intertwine the two too much, and your performance in one bleeds into your performance in the other incorrectly or adversely, it can have a negative impact on the other. So for example, this catcher told me, he said, when I am hitting, if I'm in a slump and I am striking out every at bat, I can't get a hit to save my career. He said, if I take that into my catching, then I'm not there for my pitchers. I'm going to call the wrong pitches. I'm going to miss balls in the dirt, things of this nature. He said, so I made putting on and off the catcher's gear the physical cue. And he had it down to a science. You take the shin guards off, you take the chest protector off, you take the mask and the helmet off, and you put your batting helmet on. Now you are a batter. And whatever happened, you missed the guy stealing, you didn't catch the guy stealing, a ball got past you and it cost your pitcher a run. That is gone. You are a hitter now. And then if you strike out to end the inning and you go back to the dugout, you put the shin guards on, the chest protector on, the mask and the catcher helmet on, and now you are a catcher. And you have to leave that in the batter's box and be a catcher. It just reminds me of a similar context what you're describing there.
Yeah, I appreciate that story that you had. I think it's very similar. And I think in those moments too, you have to ask yourself, like, what can you control? If something's becoming chaotic on the field and you're not clicking, or maybe I'm not connecting that pass, what else can I control? For me, I can control my effort, my energy, the way I lead with my voice in the back line. I know above all else, if I'm just having a bad day at playing soccer and nothing is going my way, I can help my team by talking, communicating, organizing, making sure that the people in front of me feel confident and know exactly what they're doing. So yeah, it's all about those moments of how else can you help your team and just what you can control.
I coach both my daughter's softball teams, and I always tell them, I said that regardless of what you do at the plate or in the field, you can have an impact on the bench. When your teammates are hitting, be the loudest, come up with some cheers, do something, high five them when they come back. Like, you can change a game, change the culture and complexion of a team, no matter, even if you don't have a bat in your hand or you're struggling in the field. I think there's so much to add. And I remember just in the soccer domain, I remember a conversation I had years ago with Ali Krieger, where she was a starter for a large part of her career with the women's national team. And then she was in more of a reserve role. And she said, when I went into the reserve role, it was a really, really difficult adjustment. But I reminded myself that whether it was in training or in games, I always had a way to make an impact. I could be cheering loud for my teammates. I could be spotting things and giving them advice, giving them encouragement or things that I see. You always, as a teammate, especially when you're a leader, have a way to make an impact. So let's talk about making an impact. Incredible impact you've had on Kansas City. We've kind of alluded to that now a few times. Just an extraordinary 2025 season for you personally and for the team. So you, 2025 best 11 in the NWSL, a finalist for 2025 NWSL Defender of the Year. And all of that is because you played a key role in helping the Current win the 2025 NWSL Shield. You helped lead the Current to numerous NWSL records. We talked about some amazing numbers before. These are equally as amazing. 9 consecutive wins, 869 consecutive shutout minutes, 16 shutouts, 9 consecutive shutouts. I mean, just remarkable lockdown defense. Kayla Sharples, talk about that. What gelled so beautifully in 2025? And then how do you continue to build on it and kind of continue to push the envelope to even greater heights in 2026 here?
Yeah, I think in 2025, honestly, something that was so helpful for us was that we had a lot of consistency in players from the 2024 season into the 2025 season. And so when you have that consistency, you have a lot of the same players returning. It's not as new anymore. You're not learning new tactics per se. You might obviously have different game plans depending on the opponents we play, but I think that was a key part of our success last year. There wasn't a lot of turnover. So you're just adding more layers onto how can we be a more successful team? How can we attack more lethally? How can we defend as stronger as a unit, learning better cues to be able to shift and to have better positioning? So I think that definitely helped. And then secondly, which was just as important, honestly, our coaching staff just did a phenomenal job of teaching the defenders, like the attention to details, incredibly crucial in these moments. And there's actually specific spots defenders should be in when there's a shot on goal. You're supposed to cut off actually like block lanes into the goal to make it easier and more predictable, like for your goalkeeper, for example. And there was just so many details and nuances that honestly, even though I've been a professional athlete, I didn't even know that we could get into that nitty-gritty details. So I think both of those things is what led us to have such a successful 2025 season.
What do you think it is about this coaching staff and this environment in particular that there's such an emphasis on these little details? I mean, because you've been playing soccer for a very long time at a very, very high level, part of so many successful clubs and teams. But what you said there really struck me. I mean, it sounds like in this environment, things are taken to a level of detail that are absolutely remarkable and in many ways maybe unique. Talk about that. What is it about this coaching staff and this environment you think enables everybody to kind of push it just one maybe level or a half a notch deeper in terms of the detail?
I think the game of soccer too, right, is, I mean, it's always changing. It's just fast paced. It's moving. There's almost sometimes like you don't even have answers for certain situations. Like you have an idea of what you should do, but if a player is 2 yards off here, it can completely change what the defenders do. So when you have just like a fast paced moving sport like that, I think they're trying to have more clarity for players, and to be able to have more clarity. It's like, what can you control? So I think that's where the attention to detail comes. Like it can be all chaotic and things like that, but what can make the players' jobs a little bit easier, give them a little bit more confidence, and where you can actually be in specific positions. And that's what will help you be more successful in these games in the 90th minute when there's only a few minutes of extra time added. And I think that's what was really critical for us.
Kayla, so this podcast is called Everybody Pulls the Tarp, and the title is all based upon an experience that I had over 20 years ago working in minor league baseball. So I worked in minor league baseball, and I showed up on the first day to what I thought was a front office internship. I thought I was going to be learning the business of sports, working in marketing and finance in the front office. And I put on a pair of nice clothes. I drove to the ballpark, and upon arriving, the team's president and general manager asked me if I could bring a pair of old clothes, keep at the ballpark for the rest of the summer, so that I could work with the grounds crew and help them pull the tarp on and off the field to cover it whenever it rains. And I was really confused, really perplexed. I said, aren't I here to be like a front office intern and learn the business of sports? And Kayla, what I learned in that moment, I will never forget. The team's general manager explained that in the minor leagues, we have the same size field, the same dirt, the same grass as our major league counterpart. The difference is in the minor leagues, we had a much smaller budget and therefore a lot less people to do the job. So the general manager, the chief marketing officer, the chief financial officer, all of us new interns and everybody in between, we were going to pitch in and help the grounds crew pull that tarp on and off the field to protect the field. But that's not where it ended, Kayla. I dressed as the mascot when our mascot went on his honeymoon. I sold merchandise in the stands. I cleaned up fireworks debris in the outfield when it blew into center field on fireworks night. I drove players to the airport. I painted the locker room. The list goes on. And Kayla, it was one of the most interesting, but also one of the most impactful life experiences, honestly, that I've ever had, because it instilled in me this idea that I have believed ever since, which is that the world's most successful teams, organizations, communities are powered by tarp pullers. People who are living this everybody pulls a tarp mindset. They're just not doing it at a baseball field, literally covering a field with a tarp. But they're never saying that's not my job. They're never going to say that a task is beneath them. They're obsessed with the details, just like we talked about just a few moments ago. So as you think about your career and the environments that you're a part of, are there examples that you can recall where you would say, maybe you wouldn't have called it that before until you heard me tell you that story, but where you would say, you know what, I'd lived the everybody pulls the tarp mindset, or I've been around a leader who lives the everybody pulls the tarp mindset. Talk to me about that.
I would say, I mean, from early on too, right? When I started playing in 2019, the NWSL, the league was a lot different then than it is now. We've come a really, really long way. And it has to do with a lot of the players that have been a part of this league from the beginning. I kind of mentioned it earlier, wanting to leave this sport in a better place than how you found it. And so I think a lot of times it was during my first few years at the Red Stars, not having a lot of resources, but just being able to still show up in moments that feel really, really difficult. I mean, I was on a team with just such incredibly talented players, a lot of players who are also a part of the national team. And my mind constantly kind of goes to Julie Ertz and the way that she leads. And like always, like no matter what we didn't have, it was again, what you can control on the field and leading by example that way. So I think she did a great job there. And then bringing it back to Kansas City, I think what you just were talking about, we 100%, like from the technical staff and coaching staff to front office to our equipment staff, they preach just wanting to do the best job that they can. They want to be the best equipment staff forever. They want to be the best coach. We as players want to win. We want to succeed. We want to be the best players we can be. So I think we kind of live that. We want to make sure that we're doing our job to make the equipment staffers' lives easier. We're going to help put the balls away, put our cleats away, things like that, because we know it takes a village to be successful and to achieve the goals that you want to, and that we all make those sacrifices. But we need to have that collective buy-in and that love for each other in order to have the success that we want.
Kayla, so well said. As we get ready to wrap up our conversation, I am curious, biggest area for growth for you still professionally, what do you think that is?
I think for me, it would be honestly continuing to develop my soccer IQ. I think that you can always be a student of the game. So whether that's continuing to study my own film, continuing to study the opponent's film of like, what are their tendencies? Can I read a certain cue and be able to make my job a little bit easier? I think that you can always be better in that regard and have a higher soccer IQ. So that's something that I continue to try to develop.
Favorite thing to do when you're not playing soccer?
Oh gosh, I have a mini Aussie doodle named Maisie. And so she's a little bit over a year now. So yeah, I'm always hanging out with her and my husband, walking to coffee shops. We love going to coffee shops and just enjoying the Kansas City area.
So final question, if you weren't playing pro soccer, what do you think you'd be doing?
Oh my gosh. Either traveling the world, seeing different cultures, immersing myself in that, or just trying just all sorts of food. And again, different restaurants, different coffee shops. I just love being in the moment in that way and experiencing new things. I don't know if that's a job per se. That just sounds like a hell of a time.
It sounds like a lot of fun regardless. Maybe you could make it a job when soccer is over. You could be a food blogger or travel blogger or coffee shop reviewer. Maybe there's something there. Sounds like a heck of a lot of fun either way. Kayla, this has been so much fun. I've wanted to have this conversation with you for a long time as I've watched the arc of your career, and a variety of the people that I've talked to over the years have kind of pointed me your way and said, Kayla Sharples, she is a tarp puller. And you confirmed it today. You live the Everybody Pulls the Tarp mindset, forever a part of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me this week. All right, Kayla?
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you're like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.